Renovate Before You Innovate, published by Portfolio for Penguin Group, copyright 2004, was written by Sergio Zeman with Armin A. Brott. Zeman is the best-selling author of The End of Marketing as We Know It, as well as the chairman of Zeman Group, an international management consulting firm. Obsession with innovation is a current business fad. Many companies rely too heavily on innovation to solve their problems, and they attempt to start over with something fresh to revive old and tired businesses. Innovation sounds great, but it's often the lazy approach to marketing, and it typically doesn't work. So what's the solution? Zeman preaches the power of renovation to accelerate and sustain top-line growth. It starts with recapturing the essence of your existing brands, products, and core competencies, and doing more of the things that made a business great in the first place. It includes redefining your competitive space and creating preference for your business. In the end, it provides the most compelling customer experience. Renovate Before You Innovate will challenge conventional business wisdom, facilitate smarter business decisions, and help companies sell more stuff to more people more often for more money, more efficiently.
While innovation and risk-taking can be critically important elements of some companies' strategies, for most companies, it simply isn't the right way to drive organic growth. What should you do instead? In a word, renovate. Before we talk about the difference between innovation and renovation, let's first discuss how a company can grow organically. To grow a company, you need to leverage 1. Your core competencies, 2. Your core essence, and 3. Your assets and infrastructure. These are the 3 components of the value equation. Your core competencies are not simply a list of your products or services. They are based on 4 distinct factors: knowledge, what you know and what you've learned; experience, what you've been through; resources, what you have; and people, what you do and how you do it. These competencies are the things you're good at, the things you know how to do better than anyone else. Core essence is somewhat more abstract. It's who you really are as a company or brand. It's the relationship customers and non-customers alike have with your brand. It's what your brand stands for in their hearts and minds, and the promises your brand makes to consumers. Your core essence is critical in determining where you can go as a business. If you try to extend your brand beyond your core essence, customers will not cooperate. If you succeed in leveraging your core competencies, core essence, and assets and infrastructure, the 3 components of the value equation, you'll be able to grow your business successfully. Consider Starbucks Coffee, whose core competencies are building stores, motivating people, and sourcing the best coffee in the world. Their core essence is providing a great coffee experience. Likewise, grilling food is the core competency of Outback Steakhouses. Its essence is Australia, and its new chain of seafood restaurants, Fishbone, which is modeled on Outback, is a great success. So, what is the difference between pursuing an innovation strategy versus pursuing a renovation strategy? Businesses that pursue an innovation strategy generally identify new growth opportunities that enable them to leverage their core competencies and assets. They embrace a philosophy of, let's start with what we can build and see if we can sell it. Companies that rely on renovation conversely start with their core essence and identify new growth opportunities that are consistent with what consumers have shown they're willing to buy. The philosophy of renovation is, let's find out what we can sell and see whether we can make it. The problem with pursuing an innovation strategy is that most companies that consider innovation make one or more of these major mistakes. One mistake is that the companies pursue creativity at any cost and treat all new ideas as potentially equal. The push to think outside the box often masks a hidden agenda that comes from higher up in the organization. Do something, anything, with idle capacity or underused assets. Money is often thrown at bad ideas as well as good ones. The resulting products often confuse customers who find no real benefit in them. These questionable products wind up taking up precious shelf space that could be dedicated to more useful items. Another mistake that companies who pursue an innovation strategy make is limiting their innovations to only new products. forgetting that innovation is about creating new value for customers, consumers, and the business. When it comes to identifying organic growth opportunities, an amazingly large percentage of companies are one-trick ponies, focusing only on coming up with new products, excluding anything else. Companies that pursue an innovation strategy also make the mistake of growing horizontally rather than vertically. Trying to grow a business through innovation means spreading resources horizontally, developing new brands, new customers, and new directions. And they try to innovate by acquiring other companies rather than growing organically. But a key major mistake that companies make when pursuing an innovation strategy is that they focus on leveraging their core competencies instead of their core essence. A critical part of being able to leverage the three elements of the value equation is having a firm grasp of what they are. Getting the right competencies is easy. If you don't know how to do something, hire someone who does. Getting a new core essence, on the other hand, is virtually impossible. Before we move to the different steps involved in renovation, let's talk a little more about your core essence, the key value equation component in a renovation strategy. Your core essence is the most important of the three elements of your value equation. Many people confuse core essence with jingles, logos, or advertising slogans. In fact, however, true core essence is the most powerful, compelling attributes of your brand. The core essence of Windows, for example, is user-friendly. For Crest toothpaste, it's fights cavities. For Pepsi, it's revolution, choice, and change. Core essence is expressed and supported by everything your company does. It is the seed from which your corporation evolves. Without one, you simply cannot grow, rendering you vulnerable to the impulse to flit from one idea to another, never building an organization that will be able to endure over the long haul. The most important thing to remember, however, is that what you say your core essence is completely irrelevant. It is what consumers and customers think that counts. In fact, there's often a big disconnect between what you think your core essence is and what is actually on the minds of consumers. This leaves you with one choice if you want to leverage your core essence. You need to hit the street and start asking people questions about three things that they perceive about your company and your brand. Emotional benefits, how your product makes them feel. Functional benefits, elements in the minds of customers that make your brand superior to your competitors. And attributes, things that affect the functional and/or emotional benefits even though they aren't benefits themselves. Doing this kind of research will enable you to see your company the way consumers do. Once you've determined your core essence, you will be able to use that knowledge to renovate every aspect of your business and start generating, evaluating, and developing organic growth opportunities. In the remainder of this summary, we will be looking specifically at how to renovate your company. A truly effective business renovation involves overhauling the following 5 key components of your business: the way you think, your destination, your competitive frame, your segmentation, or how you think about customers and your customers' brand experience. Let's start with the first component of your business that you need to renovate, your mindset. The process of renovating begins with renovating your mindset and the way you think about a number of basic business and marketing ideas. Developing a renovation mentality involves several steps. 1. Training yourself to think like the challenger or aggressor and not the champion or leader. 2. Committing, before you even start, to measure the results of every single dollar you spend on marketing. And 3, getting the idea of giving price concessions out of your head immediately. Let's look more closely at the first step involved in renovating your mindset, training yourself to think like the challenger, not the leader. The leader is the big player in the market, cautious, cumbersome, and content to kick back and rest on his laurels, never changing a thing about his business or approach. The aggressor is the new kid on the block, or one who has been successful in another area and is trying to make inroads into a new market. He is fast, smart, hungry, and he has nothing to lose. Big players in existing markets cannot get complacent. The only way to stay alive is to keep renovating, remain true to the business's core essence, and keep doing better and more relevant things with existing assets. The second step in renovating your mindset is measuring the results of every single dollar you spend on marketing. The purpose of marketing is to drive sales, and every dollar you spend on marketing should generate measurable results. You must have a plan to measure the results of your marketing activities before you put them in place. In other words, you have to create control markets and build in measurement criteria up front. Ask yourself these three questions. How much are we spending on marketing? What exactly are we spending it on? And what are we getting in return for our investment? If you know the answers to these questions, you will ultimately sell more products to more people more often and more efficiently. Your overall goal must be to maximize the returns generated by your marketing investments. Know exactly how much you're spending on each specific marketing activity. Then, when you have a handle on spending, you'll be able to determine the return each activity generates. Once you have that information, you'll be able to focus your efforts on the activities or combination of activities that produce the best returns, instead of wasting money on things that don't work. What companies should be doing is the following. 1. Change the way they think. 2. Break down their overall marketing budget and determine exactly how much they spend on each marketing element. 3. Calculate how much of their sales are being driven by each individual marketing element. 4. Determine the net profitability of those elements, resulting in a clear picture of the efficiency of each. 5. Focus their efforts on the things that generate the highest return. And 6. Dump the things that lose money or bring in little profit. You've trained to think like a challenger, and you're measuring every dollar you spend on marketing. The final step to renovating your mindset is to get the idea of giving price concessions out of your head immediately. Everything you do communicates something about your brand to your customers and prospective customers. Even your prices communicate something about your business and can be an important part of your marketing strategy. Most companies, however, fail to manage their prices at all. Prices tend to go one way, down. Think long and hard about lowering them, even temporarily. Temporary price breaks tend to become permanent. Your competitors will see your lower prices and drop theirs. Once they do this, you'll have to lower yours again to stay ahead of them. It's a downward spiral that leads to decreased profits. Your mindset is the first component of your business that you need to overhaul for a truly effective business renovation. The next component you need to overhaul is your destination. Take a deep breath and think honestly about your current circumstances and everything, good and bad, that you're facing. Determine also what obstacles you're facing. Once you have those things down, you can determine how to get where you want to be. The first step is to come up with a destination statement which articulates where you want to end up as a business. You need to articulate how you want the consumer to think, feel, and act in relation to your company and brand. The statement must also express the outcome you want to achieve in the marketplace, where you want to be as opposed to where you are currently. Your destination, as well as the statement that articulates it, must be specific enough to guide the decisions you make, painting a clear picture for everyone who directly or indirectly encounters the end consumer of who you are, what you believe, where you're going, and what drives you on the journey. It must also lay out clearly, from the perspective of the consumer, how they interact with you, how they think about you, how they feel about you, and the role you play in their lives. A clearly defined destination leads to more effective business objectives, guides the development of marketing strategies, and ultimately drives success in the marketplace. The real goal of destination planning and articulating a concise destination is this. Having a clear destination will clarify what your value proposition is and how to improve it. Your value proposition is the catalyst that propels your brand and business to their destination. All that matters is what your brand means to your target customer, and in turn, how the customer acts on that meaning. What gives your brand meaning is your answer to the customer's most important question. What's in it for me? Your answer to that question is your value proposition. Your value proposition must have the power to move consumers up the value chain. After mindset and destination, the third component of your business that you need to renovate is your competitive frame. In other words, how you think of your competition. When most people think of their competition, they think only of their industry rivals, other companies in the same category, or other companies that offer similar products and services. That, however, is only part of the story. Your real competition is the entire set of viable alternatives to your product that compete for your customers' money and time. This is your competitive frame, and it includes many things that you might never have considered. One great example of a competitive frame can be seen in Coke's first foray into the Russian market. The company spent much time researching its competitors, and what it found was shocking. Coke's biggest competitor wasn't Pepsi or some regional cola or even vodka. Coke's biggest competitor was the city bus. Many Russian consumers simply did not have enough disposable income to buy a Coke and take a bus home from work, so they had to choose one or the other. Rather than being able to compete on taste and refreshment as they had in other markets, Coke had to convince Russian consumers that it was a good value for the money, and that when it came down to a choice between a Coke and a McDonald's hamburger or a candy bar or a magazine or some other non-essential item, Coke was the best and most satisfying investment. How you define your competitive frame will have a direct impact on the size of the opportunity, the diversity of consumers and competition, and the benefits you'll need to offer in order to compete effectively. Defining a narrow competitive frame may seem safe, but it's usually a big mistake. The broader your definition, assuming it's consistent with your core essence, the more purchase occasions and the greater wallet share you will capture. Differentiation is where value is created and is what separates you from the pack. The driving philosophy here is the belief that customers do not buy sameness. The only way to build brand equity and drive sales volume is through offering consumers relevant emotional benefits. The objective of segmentation is to group markets, customers, or consumers in order to maximize profit. Traditionally, it is done by dividing consumers into neat, predictable, demographic, psychographic, or behavior-specific groups. The assumption for each is identical, that everyone in each group will behave the same way, reading the same magazines, watching the same TV shows, eating in the same kinds of restaurants, etc. When you segment your market using these traditional methods, you get segments that are meaningful and mutually exclusive, measurable, substantial, as well as attainable and actionable. These factors are not enough to help you achieve volume growth. If you want growth, you have to allocate your resources to the segments that produce the highest profits. What you need is a completely different approach to segmentation, one that enables you to segment your market based on the values, attitudes, and behaviors that shape demand, as well as the attributes and benefits that will increase that demand. Such an approach is called demand-based segmentation. Demand-based segmentation is about giving existing customers a reason to buy more. Roughly 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers. You'll get that 20% to buy more by segmenting those existing customers based on their usage. Create an ideal customer profile and conduct the requisite research to help you segment customers by their attitude toward your company. Such attitudinal segmentation might look something like this. Hard opposition. These are the unconvertible loyalists of your competition. You can write these people off. Soft opposition. These are the consumers who are currently not in your brand franchise but aren't loyal to any one competitor. Winning them over will be hard and expensive. Undecided. These people have no allegiances to speak of. You can probably win these consumers' business with price promoting, but you cannot win their loyalty. Soft support. These are the people who like your brand and occasionally use it, but not often enough. Moving them to greater loyalty is efficient and highly effective in building profitability. Hard support. These are your strong loyalists. They'll keep buying from you even if they have to pay a premium to do so. Segment consumers based on their response to specific benefits, products, services, promotions, and other inducements. Demand-based segmentation defines the marketing levers that are the most effective and that you can use to target and sell to each segment. In other words, it makes segmentation actionable, enabling you to forecast increases in usage by influencing the perceptions of the brand and products used. This segmentation will produce a framework of opportunities rather than a structure of the market. As such, it will guide all marketing strategies. Even though you might think you're selling a product or a service, you're actually selling an experience. That experience is often the only significant thing that separates you from your competitors. In most cases, experiences have little to do with the products themselves, no matter how hard the companies that offer them try to make a connection. Harley-Davidson motorcycles, for example, are not the most comfortable or fastest or best designed bikes on the market. That's not what matters, though. The reason people buy a Hog is for the Harley experience. Ride to live, live to ride. Wind in your hair, American classic, etc. The real reason products in and of themselves have become almost afterthoughts is because technology has advanced to the point where nearly any company can copycat a product and have it on store shelves in a ridiculous amount of time. The big question is why experience has become the new basis of competition in so many categories. In 2001, consumer research found that after 9/11, consumers started placing much more emphasis on family and relationships. Recent research found that although 9/11 has become a less painful memory, there are some lingering effects. Consumers indicated that on any given day, if they had to choose between making more money and taking things a little easier, they'd go with easier. The brands and products they find most appealing are the ones that make their time more enjoyable, not the ones that save them money. Time, it seems, has become a kind of new currency, and its scarcity has made consumers more conscious, discriminating, and more aware of the present tense than ever before. Product benefits and attributes are simply no longer enough. Today's consumers want experiences they can feel and touch, experiences that will change their emotions, their attitudes, and maybe even their lives. Being aware of this shift is great news for your company. Being able to compete on the basis of experiences expands your competitive frame and gives you more opportunities to deliver value and differentiate yourself from competitors. Experiences can sometimes be service-based. Any company, large or small, can provide a similar level of service-based experience. The only rule is that every single employee, from the CEO on down, must know and fully support the company's core essence and business destination, with no exceptions. Overall, the experience you offer is likely to be a combination of product attributes, service, retail environment, and every other point of contact you have with consumers. Your advertising, promotion, marketing, PR, and sponsorships. It also includes your website, packaging, and employment policies, how your receptionist answers the phone, and how your top executives behave at parties. The only way to build loyal customers is to deliver experiences that create value beyond mere satisfaction. Consumers are looking for experiences that complement their lifestyle and brands that say something about their aspirations.